Hi, I'm Jason, and in this series of tutorials we'll be looking at learning Linux from an absolute beginner's point of view. So the first question would be, why Linux and why would I be interested? Well, here are a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's free. There are no licensing fees and it's all open source and it has a huge user base behind it that is constantly growing. So if you want your Linux to do things that maybe Windows or Mac couldn't do, then there are plenty of people in the Linux community that may have already accomplished this before or know how to help you. Another reason is that maybe you want a breath of fresh air. Maybe you're fed up with your current operating system because it's getting boring. Maybe you want to learn it for a career. After all, today, Linux is deployed in most data centers worldwide and manages some of the internet's most critical applications and services, even powering what we commonly refer to as the cloud. A large number of companies trust Linux to maintain their workloads and do so with little or no interruptions to downtime. The Linux kernel has even crept its way into our homes. Our entertainment system, our automobiles, our mobile devices, everywhere you look there is Linux. But wait, Jace, I hear you ask, if it's so popular, why aren't more people using it? And why do statistics say that the Linux desktop market share is only 1.9%? Well, maybe it's because the world has been conditioned to Microsoft Office or Adobe this and Adobe that. Maybe it's because all the latest games are suited to run on Windows. Maybe we have just become so dependent on the norm, we don't know anything else, and we don't really want to relearn something new. Have a look at some of these interesting statistics from 2019. So, in 2019, 100% of the world's supercomputers run on Linux. Out of the top 25 websites in the world, only 2 aren't using Linux. 96.3% of the world's top million servers run on Linux. And 90% of all cloud infrastructure operates on Linux. And practically all the best cloud hosts use it. Well, we could discuss why this and why that all day long. So let's just carry on with this introduction. The next question you may have is, well, Jason, there are so many distributions of Linux out there. Which one would I choose? Where do I start? Well, here's a useful website for you. It's called LibreHunt.org. So let me just give you a quick demonstration. We can read up on certain things like what is an operating system, why should you use Linux, etc., etc. But the most important part on this website is if we scroll right to the bottom, we can see choose a distro today. And just by answering a few questions, like I may be a beginner on Linux, maybe I want it to support old hardware because I've got an old computer or a laptop laying around, so I'll say yes to that. Do I want timely updates in a fast fashion or just as they come? I'll just have them usual. Do I want it to look like Mac or Windows? Maybe I want to be in an environment that looks familiar to me. I've come from Windows, so I'd like it to look a bit like Windows. Do I want touch support? Well, I'm not using supersonic modern hardware, so I'm going to say it doesn't really matter to me. And do I want it to be popular? Because the more popular the distribution of Linux is, the bigger the user base is behind it, and the larger the amount of people there to help you. So maybe I would say, yes, I want it to be popular so I can get more support. Do appearances matter? Yes or no? Well, it doesn't matter to me. And then at the end of that, you can just submit your answers and you will end up with at least 3 Linux distributions that this questionnaire recommends may be a good starting point. So here we can see that we have all the tick boxes in all of the questions that we've answered. So this sort of fits within our criteria. If you're interested to know what distribution of Linux I'm using, I'm on Linux Mint. So some of you may just want to try out Linux and stick to the lovely graphical user interface and see if it could be a potential replacement to your current operating system. Oh, but wait a minute, Jace. I use many apps that run on Windows or Mac. Well, don't worry too much. Here is another useful website that can help. And it's called Alternatives To. alternatives to .NET to be precise. And again, let me give you a quick demonstration. So in here we can decide, let's have a look at Windows. We've got all of the operating systems across the top here. We've got Windows, Mac, Android, Linux, iPhone, iPad, etc., etc. And basically you can decide to say, well, I'm on a Windows platform here, but if I were on a Linux platform, so let me just select Linux, and I was to say, okay, normally I used Word, Microsoft Word. It would go off, have a look, and come back and say, well, here are the alternatives to Microsoft Word. We've got LibreOffice Writer, we've got Google Docs, we've got WPS Writer, and it just goes on and on. I'll give you another quick demonstration. For example, when I was using Windows, I was using a software package called Camtasia to produce my videos. And if I'm on Linux, I can't use that. So let's just choose Camtasia and we'll see what it says. Well, Open Broadcast Software, OBS, Caden Live, which is what I currently use on Linux to produce my videos actually. OpenShot, Shotcut, DaVinci Resolve, Capture, Simple Screen Recorder. Actually, this Simple Screen Recorder is what I'm using right now to capture this screen that I'm doing this tutorial with. So, why is Linux so different from Windows or Mac? Well, here's the short answer. And don't get me wrong, Mac and Windows does what it says on the tin, but Linux allows you to create your own tin. So just before I wrap up here, again, this version of Linux that I'm using here is Linux Mint 19.10. However, we won't be seeing an awful lot of it once we're underway with the rest of this series, as we'll be mainly learning how to utilize Linux through the command line terminal. And why are we doing this? Well, it will teach us about how the computer processes instructions, it will teach us how to navigate around the file system, even how to accomplish tasks faster using the command line instead of the graphical user interface. Yep, you did hear that right. There are things we can do in the command line that are quicker than clicking icons on a desktop. And you could also use this as a starting point for a very lucrative career into becoming a Linux system administrator. And you know what? On top of that, it's also good fun. So for those of you who have Linux installed already, great, let's carry on with the next video. And for those of you who haven't, see my tutorial, how to try out Linux on your Windows computer using a virtual machine. I'll leave a link in the description. Get it installed, come back here, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.